Bienvenidos to Charlando, a YouTube series launched by CLATA in 2020. It's a form of creating content in digital media and Latino theater. We cover a spectrum of topics that range from Afro-Latino theater to device work to this conversation that I have invited great leaders in our theater community throughout the country to just talk about what has happened in 2020 and going into 2021. But first, I would like for you to introduce yourself and a very brief description of what it is that you do in your respective theaters in the city that you're from. Let's start with Rosalba. Let's start with Rosalba. Yes.
Okay.
Hi, hello, good to see everyone here, and thank you so much for this invitation. We really appreciate it. Chicago is like a second home to so many of us, so it is wonderful. I'm Rosalba Rolón. I'm artistic director and co-founder of Pregones, Puerto Rican Traveling Theater, which is a combination of two theaters that merged some 4 years ago. Puerto Rican Traveling Theater having been founded by the esteemed Miriam Colon. And we are carrying the torch of our legacy by joining our two theaters and working throughout a season that is integrated by a main stage season of original works by our ensemble, a presenting program, an education program, and a touring program. And we have two theaters, Pregones in the Bronx, in New York City, and then Puerto Rican Traveling Theater in Manhattan, on the theater district in Manhattan, in New York City. Thank you.
José Luis.
Hi, my name is José Luis Valenzuela, and I'm the artistic director of the Latino Theater Company and the Los Angeles Theater Center in Los Angeles. And like Rosalba, we've been in this for a very, very long time. We do have 4 theaters in our building, and we do essentially produce around a season of 10 plays a year, and we do have an educational program. And that's really it.
David.
Well, thank you for having me. My name is David Lozano, and I am the Executive Artistic Director of Cara Theater in Dallas. And we produce plays about the U.S. Latinx experience. And we also have a series of programs for youth that travel into schools with their bilingual plays, as well as classes and residencies. And we also have a community action department that focuses on work in the communities in terms of racial healing, as well as circles of community care, in which we are able to bring people of diverse backgrounds to share experiences and begin to envision a stronger and more unified city. So, and we are also in our 25th season and becoming a resident theater company at the Latino Cultural Center in Dallas.
Thank you. Hugo?
I'm Hugo Medrano, producing and artistic director of Gala Hispanic Theater. We are being here in this disturbed capital of the nation right now for 45 years. This is our 45th season, and very happy to survive and doing theater in Spanish with simultaneous English interpretation. And also we have other authors, Latinx dramateurs. And we have the Children's Theater, Galita, and also classes for students, after school students, Paso Nuevo, which is basically on writing and performing arts. And they have their own group that they perform once every 4 months.
Wow. And I'm Myrna Salazar, co-founder and executive director of the Chicago Latino Theater Alliance. It is an alliance to support the local Latino theater companies and artists. And we produce an annual International Latino Theater Festival. Last year it had to be canceled, but in 2019, I had the privilege of inviting several programmers. I know, David, you were invited, and Jose Luis and Hugo joined us in Destinos. And I am so very happy to have all of you here, distinguished leaders in our theater community, that I am just very honored to have you. So this is going to be an open conversation. Obviously, we can all interject. Make sure that you unmute yourself so that we can go on ahead and have the conversation be fluid. But I wanted to ask you, considering of everything that went on, that's been going on, not only, there's been 3 pandemics. So we've got the virus, we got the social racism issue, and we've got political and economic issues facing our country. What are you doing to maintain positive action within your theaters and your programming with your ensemble and with the local Latino theater artists in your respective cities? Let's start with you, Rosalba.
Well, in our case, we with Pregones, Puerto Rican Traveling Theater, we went right to talk again and share amongst ourselves, just a reaffirmation of our core values as an organization, right? And as a theater. Everything was happening at once last spring, as we know, between February and March, when everything hit, and it was, you know, the Black Lives Matter movement and what the call for action, and then there were our own movements, Latinx, Native Americans. I mean, it was just a lot going on. There's always a lot, but that was like really intense, and we took a deep look into ourselves and came out really confident that we were leading a real important life, theater life, that the content of our work, the content of our outreach to the community, our relationships, our commitments have been on the right course of action throughout our history. So we felt that we just needed to, you know, turn up the volume on that and make sure that we had that open conversation with our artists as well. Programmatically, I always think that artist was gonna, what we show an artist, the X-ray of how we think, right? You know, what you put on stage, how you curate a season is an X-ray of our values. And so because we had already a setup for virtual work, because when we began, we started as a touring company. By the time we had our first theater, we had been touring the world. And we had an international project with 5 other countries and sister theaters. And so we already had a setup for virtual work. We were creating virtually with other theaters in other countries.
Prior to the pandemic, you were doing
Pandemic years. Since 2008, we began that, what we call the virtual theater carousel. And also eventually incorporated artists from Alaska and Hawaii. So we had that. So when this hit, we went on gear, you know, we went on automatic. It was like, we are transferring everything immediately to online, and we were able to do so. But I want to say that by the time New York City closed the theaters and we were told we have to close, we did so. We were on our March is Music series, and this is again about the values involved. And we had just been able to do our first concert, or our second concert, and we had 9 more concerts to go. We canceled, and every single artist got fully paid.
Oh, wow.
Even though they did not perform.
Okay.
Because we could not have done it in any other way. We called our funders, we talked to our board, and no one even blinked. I said, yeah, we're doing that. And then followed up with a series of micro grants, through some additional grants, micro grants to the artists in our immediate family, as well as in collaborating with other theaters. So we all look for ways. I mean, we're not alone. People have been doing this. I think this resonates with everyone in this room in that sense. We all went to do what we know best in the way we know, right? It's different from each theater. So that's what we began. We began our programming right away. And this year, we set our minds to do 100 virtual performances, and We have 41 to go, but there we are. So that's what we've been doing, working nonstop, but really fully committed to the well-being of our immediate artists, and then working under the sort of theme that our theater is closed temporarily for the audience, but open for the artists. So as soon as we were able, that we're allowed to bring artists at small groups, 5, 6 artists at a time, we open our stage so artists could come in and do residencies and create work to be able to do virtually. So that's more or less in a nutshell what we've been up to.
Great. I'd like to know, Jose Luis, how you did with La Virgen de Guadalupe, your annual event.
Yeah, I mean, it did great. Actually, this is the annual event that we do, and it's free to the community. It's in Spanish, and we usually get 7,000 people in 2 days because it's inside the cathedral, and the cathedral can hold 3,500 people inside. And we did an archival footage from 2009 because, you know, that's the only thing that we had. And it was amazing. We had so many people to watch it on video, the archival footage. And you know, it did very, very well. Meaning we started doing archival. We had nothing. We couldn't do anything. And the archival, you know, the union only allows you to have a camera in the back of the house, and the only thing you have. But we pulled it all out, and it was a great way to pay the artists because we had to go through a SAG contract in order for them to allow us to show the archival footage, because equity was a big discussion about not allowing that to happen. So we went through a SAG contract, and it worked out well. And we did, I'm gonna tell you, I mean, from Monday to beginning on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, every night, we had a program beginning in July, all the way to December. Every day you could see something that we were showing. And, you know, it was a great experience and relationship to people around the world looking at the work. That was a big difference.
But given the circumstances, you mean the SAG and equity were not able to offer some type of waiver to what you do?
Because we're an equity company, in order for equity not to come after us, we have to have a union contract. So we did a SAG contract, which was much better than the equity contract for us, you know. So we have to, it was like doing a mini production, even though it was archival footage. We do have to pay, and it was fine because, again, like Rosalba, you know, the artists who were going to work the entire year were without a job for 9 months. And we needed somehow to help them financially. So we pay every artist, and we pay the designers and the directors and the playwrights who work in these projects. And we were lucky that, you know, we were fine financially to be able to do that for the amount of time. And also understanding that, I mean, in our theaters, the biggest one is 500 seats that we have. So, you know, in order to get, I don't know, 10,000 people, you need to sold out every show, and you have to run for at least 20 days, you know, to have 20 performances. Well, in digital, we were able to pass those numbers because it was globally, so for free, a lot of people were able to see the work. And I was very surprised because I have a hard time looking at theater on video, to be honest, a really hard time. But we knew that we needed to do something. So it was surprised, but I got a lot of people from Latin America, a lot of people from China, from Switzerland, from Europe, a lot of people from New York who'd never seen our work, which is very nice, you know? So to the point that right now, we can go back into our theaters yet. None of us. I mean, I cannot, the theater is closed, totally closed with security. We don't go back. We're not allowed to go inside the theater and work or create nothing yet.
Especially with the pandemic being
Yeah,
so
with the
ravaging Los Angeles, no?
and
Uh,
we think
Hugo and David, feel free to jump in.
So when the pandemic hit, we took stock of what again of our values and of our mission, and we thought about what is it that Katamia what is it in Katamia's character to do in this moment of the pandemic, and we took stock of what our strengths are and our assets, and we realized that as artists we have practices that we can actually share with our patrons and non-artistic supporters. So I was leading a free a class on the preparation of the actor, in which I go through the process of relaxing of guiding my attention to relax every muscle of my body and to find the present moment in the work, and to allow the people watching to experience the preparation of calming oneself in order to perform and to create. And people were really in need of something like that at that time, because the beginning of the pandemic was so stressful. And I continued giving that class until the protests against the murder of George Floyd were taking place. So it seemed to really have an impact on people. We also offered other courses that people were taking that were allowing people to continue to engage in community and to talk about how they cope with everyday challenges, and to really affirm what they already do to really stay healthy through these crises and challenges. So that was an interesting period. I think what happened next was also very interesting. We usually have a summer camp called the School of Yes, and we decided to have an international School of Yes summer camp in partnership with professors from UNAM, the National Autonomous University of Mexico. And it was extraordinary to have Chicano students ages 6 through 18 and 19 with Mexican children, Puerto Rican children, and we had professors from UNAM, and we had company members teaching. And it was really incredible to see the Mexico City aesthetic mixed with the Texas Chicano aesthetic, and the children were incredible. The final performance was incredible. And when we had a demonstration on Zoom, we had 60 squares of not with just the children experiencing the demonstration, but their families. And we even had families in which a child was seeing her mother on the screen in another country, separated by a border. And so it was a really moving experience. Uh, we we had a caravan for the Day of the Dead, since with the National Office of LULAC, since you can't have a permit for special events. LULAC organized a demonstration, a First Amendment demonstration, and we designed 15-foot carromatos, mojigangas, and we had a procession through downtown Dallas with extraordinary calavera puppets, danzantes, bailarines folclóricos, and we had a vigil at City Hall. So
maintaining distance, the physical distance, and the masks and everything else. Wow.
Absolutely. And so that was a powerful event. And we've done a number of things. And I'll close with this, is that we started developing a hybrid approach to learning for schools. So we're not showing virtual plays on our website and selling them or even demonstrating them, but we're building a repertory of touring shows for schools in digital format. So, and like Jose Luis was saying, is that we reached about 15,000 children in 14 days through the through one digital play. So we're unrolling about 5 more productions over the rest of the semester.
That's us.
Mhm.
That's us.
It's been
Hugo?
great.
Hugo, you're muted.
Yes, okay, no, I know, gracias, thank you. Well, in our case at Gala, when the pandemic came, when February, March came, we were very scared in the sense that we couldn't do any activities, or at least to continue with the kind of crazy rhythm that is always at Gala. We couldn't even think about staying at home and just trying to keep the theater alive. We had to do it. We had to do something at the level of not only artistic level, but also to the community level. There were programs at Gala. First of all, as responding a little to what Rosalba said before, we never had anything virtual at Gala. We never have any programs. We have no idea how to work virtually. I'm as a director, I don't know the technique of using and capitalizing on Zoom, on any other ways. I don't know anything about platforms or whatever. So it was like our life, it was going to end up right there. So we really wanted to continue with some kind of live performance. Of course, we couldn't do anything. The very first beginning, March and February and March was terrible. So we just tried to stay at home and continue the relationship with the actor, with the employees and everybody. But soon as the alcalde, the mayor, opened a little the rules, we were willing to come to the office, some of the employees. So we were 3 working here from the very moment that they permit us till now. And Rebecca, our manager director, and also Abel Lopez, our producer and associate, they were 3 working here along with the production manager. So we were working really heavy in terms of creating some kind of very strong communication with the city, with the mayor office, because we wanted to continue doing live performances. So that way we kind of create some close relationship with the alcaldía, with the mayor's government, and they were really interested in what we were doing. The fact that we were doing this Paso Nuevo program, which is classes on writing, theater for teenagers, for youth, it was very important because we find out that the kids needed desperately to continue the live classes. They were Latinos living in rooms, in a very, very limited space in their own houses, with many relatives or whatever, and it was incluso very dangerous to have them there constantly. So we talk about that to the alcalde, and they let us do a kind of hybrid program. Like some of the students were coming, like 10 students were coming for live classes and live meeting sessions, and others, they will come just for virtual classes. And it was incredibly successful because these kids, they were so creative, so thankful to us that we did things and they did things incredible. Well, they wrote poems, they created iPod kind of theater, drama, and that we start to work with the alcalde about the possibility of doing theater for adults in that sense. So they gave us they include us to the Kennedy Center and Gala in a pilot kind of program in which we will have just maximum 50 people in the theater, which was very interesting, although 50 people we had to divide it in two because 25 for the technicians and employees and people, volunteers, all this the stuff around the theater in itself, and another 26 for the audience. Well, we decided to go on with that anyway, which was crazy, totally crazy, because the play that we had already announced, it was this classical one, which was with tons of characters and everything. Then we were fortunately able to shrink a little, and we did it with 7 actors. Very interesting set, which was a kind of all plexiglass, like a bird cage, which went very well with the theme of the play, and also created a separation, a distance from the audience. We had to deal with many regulations from the equity, from the directors, choreographers, and designers union about how the rehearsal should be, how the actors should be treated, about tests, about security with the audience, about the most important, to have the air condition, the air. There is a particular type of air, then they need special equipment that we didn't have it. But we were lucky enough to use some money that the city promised us before the pandemic to do renovations in the theater. They gave us $1 million to do renovations in the theater, carpeting, seats, and sound equipment. Then we decided to use that money to put an out of this world equipment for air changing. So it was perfect. And also it was perfect in the time because we had time enough to bring some constructors, construction workers, and doing the whole system. That it was very complicated. It will be very complicated if we had to do it meanwhile we perform. So it was a kind of good things that happened at the same time. So that way we were able to do our first in-person production, which was the El Perro del Hortelano, Dog in the Manger, which was incredibly successful. We had just 26 miserable people, the first phase of the program. But then they came to see it, they saw the audience coming, full theater, 26 people. And they said, well, we could give you 100, which was an improvement in that sense, because we had to keep another 50 almost between again, technicians, volunteers, and other people. And so we have about 50, 60 people on the audience, which helped us a lot. And so we did 5 weeks of that. And then we did also the latest one, our festival, Flamenco Festival, which is a very traditional one. It's always a sailor, but this time we couldn't do it at all because it really was at the top of the pandemic, you know, when you get into the really peak of the infections. So we couldn't do it because it was only 10 people on the theater that they permitted. So impossible. We did a streaming. We actually spent the money that we have to do a very good production of Intimo, a particular creation of Edwin Aparicio, and a very good dancer, Omaira Amaya. And we streamed it, and he has been very successful in terms of selling that. But it was difficult. And we had, of course, other programs. Then we did virtually, which is the kind of something similar to what you do, Myrna. We do, I do interviews to artists from Gala, every type of artists, actors, musicians, directors, authors. And I do an interview with some pieces of what the actor or the singer or whatever did at Gala. So I communicate the people, and it came out pretty well. And also the reading with Galita. Galita is our children's theater. So we were very active. If we didn't have this activity at Gala, we were not live. We would not be alive.
Unlike all of you, Chicago went on total lockdown. And as you know, we are still under lockdown. Restaurants, I mean, although our positivity rate has gone down significantly, still the city, the mayor, as well as the governor has not allowed anybody to go into the restaurants. And, we have to recalibrate what it is that people can do. And in trying to recalibrate what was it that we were able to do, we created Destinos al Aire, which was very, very successful. And it was we engaged 10 different artists. All of them got paid for 10 minutes work. We set the stage in a flat truck bed in front of a huge screen, which is a drive-in. They turned this huge in the Pilsen area. We were simulcasting the what's going on the flat truck. They only allowed 140 cars, but every car could have up to 5 people. And it sold as soon as we advertised that we promoted the event for the 17th, which was also the beginning of Latino Heritage Month, or Hispanic Heritage Month, the way people normally call it. I have to say Latino. We had an amazing sales, immediately sold out, and we also simulcast into Facebook Live. It was a huge production, and since I like to do things very big, I decided to hire a company to close the event with a fireworks, and they gave us 5 minutes of wonderful fireworks. And we collaborated both with the National Museum of Mexican Art, with Carlos Tortoledo, which many of you know, and also with Pepe Vargas, who provided a film after the live performances from his International Film Festival. Mm-hmm. So that was the only live event that we were able to do. However, we're thinking that given the circumstances moving forward in 2021, that I think that engaging audiences by going to communities and doing it on open air is possibly a way to go to engage more audiences and direct them to the theaters once they are opened. And there's just been so many challenges across the board in terms of the relief funding that is available through state and city, as well as foundations having to apply for each and every one of them. And also the PPP. Tell me yourselves, how have you been successful, and has that helped any in moving that money forward to the artists?
In listening to my compañeros aquí, I marvel at how we are almost clones of each other and still are very different. We're very unique, but we're like the same, and how creative, how we have not done it alone, how we rely on our team and the people around us, right? Like, I would be remiss if I don't say that, for example, like Hugo have been interviewing artists. We developed the Spotlight series, which since last June has been shedding the light on people behind the scenes, interviewing people that the audience never gets to meet, for example, or even our ensemble members who people associate with some roles but don't know them in other areas of their creative work, for example. And Jorge Merced, my associate director, who has worked with Cara as well, has been developing that project, right? So we have all these, we are developing a new piece, and the collaborations. We collaborate with Revolución Latina, that is able to provide a curriculum for our training program. We have even toured with a movie from New York. We were presented at a festival in Philadelphia, another one in Holyoke. And so what we really were relying on, in addition to the teamwork, was our relationship with the funders, people who have trusted our work and who trust our judgment and our relationship with our audience. These are the people who we say, if there's the PPP program and the various, even the regular grants, I have to say, the philanthropic community has come through in understanding that they can trust us because we're doing the work in a different format or a different approach. And as we all have said, of course, far-reaching in terms of amounts of people, that it will be a good challenge to discuss when we'll go back to, to the station, say, okay, now how do we handle that connection between what we have in our station, what we throw out there, we were very, very lucky. Our relationship with our local cable company, for example, cable TV, has given us in perpetuity a half hour every Monday night.
Yeah,
Wow,
that's great.
Good. That's
that
great.
is great. Wow.
Incredible. And
But
then
you,
whenever we have something longer than that, like an hour and a half, they will give us a Wednesday evening or a Friday evening. And we have also strengthened our relationship with the New York City. And that's something you may want to look into. New York City, the mayor's office for New York Entertainment, which has its own commissioner, it has its own nightlife office, and they are able to guide us through the maze of uh, making sure contracting and safety measures and all that. And in addition, lately, Dr. Fauci challenged us because at the APAP conference to what if our venues can be sites for testing or can be sites for even vaccines,
Yeah.
so that people will regain their trust and know that I can go to Caramia because that's a place where I feel safe.
Mhm.
And so we already have submitted our request to become a testing site, for example. And so these are things we do. So how do we move the money around? Is we haven't had, we of course we took advantage of the offers that were there, the federal assistance, and it went right to the artists, and in creating the new works that they're proposing, but also really renegotiating our existing contracts with the funders, which we've had pretty much 100% success rate in terms of them saying, we trust you, because we've all proven, all of us here in this chat have proven that we can be trusted with their funds.
but you know what, Rosalba, you're totally right. But they were not only the regular funders, or in general the institution who funds the type of institution like ours. But we discovered something very interesting, that then we start to receive funds from individuals,
Yes.
from Latinos, which are very, very difficult to get money from. Or if you get the $50, the 150, but they start to give us 500. And we really, really were surprised with that, because it's not, the Latino, we have to understand, and they come here to work hard for take the family, and they don't have a notion of how you call it, of donating money as we American people have.
Especially for the arts,
Exactly, especially for the arts.
Latinos will go dig in their pockets if it's anything to do with a disaster. They'll
Yeah.
be the first one to give a lot of money. But when it
Mhm.
comes to the arts, I don't know what your experience has been throughout, but it's been very difficult and very challenging here in Chicago to
No,
get
it is. They're terrible here in Washington. The
So,
same thing, but there was a really surprising this turnout, which we were, of course, very welcome. But also there were funding institutions who called us before and said, please do apply for us. And we really been saved by all these two things that happened.
The quantity.
Where I live, I mean, what I was interested in listening to Rosalba and sorry, and David, and what it happens during this year, and I'm changing the subject a little bit because I feel like we have 10 minutes and I want to say these two very important things that happen. It seems like happen with it. We really also had a big analysis discussion if we were valuable to the community and if we should keep existing in the middle of the year. It was like, look at you guys, we have this little money that we can spend through the year, but it means we have to, we really important part of the community. We did a whole survey and whole things about, the role that we play as theater companies in the community. And the response was, that we found out that we had a lot of value in our community, a lot of value. And that was really reassuring. So, also our programming for 2021 had to change a lot because we had to say, okay, what do we need to do in response to this? You know what I mean? So I heard that from you, Rosalba, talking about the core values and what it was, and from you, David. I thought that's really meaningful for the field and for our community and for ourselves as theater companies who've been doing this for for a very long time. And to me, that was very revelatory in a way, because we are set in a trend and suddenly we get stopped. And then we have to at least we have to reevaluate our entire existence. Because we've been doing it for very long. My youngest actor in the ensemble is 58 years old.
Wow.
Okay. And my ensemble. And, and we're like, you guys, is this it? Shall we move on? And through these analyses and these surveys and these conversations that we have to have with the community, we discovered that, the role that this is very important, you guys. I'm talking about not just any theater, I'm talking about our theater companies who had been in the community, developing the work with the community, for the community, has an incredible value that I don't think has never been appreciated.
And if I could say, absolutely, Jose Luis, thank you for saying that. And actually, make no mistakes, we all have suffered a huge hit in ticket sales. We haven't, an incredible drop. So there's a hole right there. But something else emerged. And if we can bring back that platform of ticket sales with what we have learned, I think that we have a bright future in front of us, and our community, our neighborhoods, we can't abandon the small business around us. We have to keep involving them. Like if we have a long day of recording at the theater, we make sure we buy the lunch from the corner store and the bodega, and that's a huge commitment. When we buy our materials, where do we buy them from? And so that's what we've been doing also more intentionally, I think, that we did before, perhaps.
Yeah, we have I have 300 part-time people that we hire a year who were unemployed. Just think about it. It hurts my heart to think that those 300 people don't have employment for 2020. I mean, and we have to think about the economic impact that we have in the community, because all these people we gave, what I mean? We as organizations in the community, these are the young people who need, they need to be ushers or need to work in the box office or need to do some carpentry or need to, I mean, this is an important, and we're not, at least we were not as aware of that great impact that we do as an organization in our community. And I think this is something that we need to talk more about. We need, yeah, go ahead, David.
Was one thing about the pandemic and then of course the protests is that immediately, since we couldn't perform, there was the void of service to the community and how do we sustain community. And it was very clear that our Latinx and our BIPOC theaters, we've been doing this for decades.
Yeah.
And so what was clear is that our Latinx and POC artists and leaders are actually the leaders of this moment in history in many ways. And so this has led us to explore many different things at this time. We received a lot of relief funds and that were able to sustain our operating budget at the same level as the previous fiscal year. But moving forward, I've been really thinking about how we diversify our revenue streams. And one of the things that's very clear that's been happening naturally is that we've been consulting with primarily large white-led institutions about Latinx cultural expressions in their, in their organizations, in their businesses, in their art, as well as intercultural communications. But there's so much that we have expertise in out of necessity. And often that expertise is developed through our struggle. And sometimes in our struggle in this fight for equity. But now at this moment, it seems it's very clear that this expertise are assets that really the leaders in our cities are looking for. So we're looking to see how we can provide consultations that can provide a revenue, not just for the organization, but for the active artists and community leaders that we've been working with for so long, so we can turn our scarcity, mindset of struggle into one of abundance and hopefully of economic autonomy in this new normal.
I know that I said 45 minutes. You have been extremely generous with your time. I am in total awe with this group, with these respected leaders in our community, and the amount of work and sabiduría that you guys bring to the table. I want to say thank you on behalf of CLATA, on behalf of the theater community throughout the country, and of course to our audiences and the philanthropic community that believed in us and give us the funds that drive our art. And there's nothing more powerful than arts and culture and to feel it in carne viva. I think there's a lot of virtual fatigue among us. We've been very resilient about staying abreast with everything that's going on in digital media and trying to know and learn from what everybody's doing. I applaud everything that you're doing. My respects to all of you. We have so much more to discuss at this level. The anti-racism training that us as Latino have to take and be part of the conversation with the the white counterparts. It's very fatiguing. I'm fatigued, but at the same time, nothing has given me more pleasure than to have spent 45 minutes, I think we've been on this already, with you and what you bring in your knowledge and your passion for the art and that you put in the passion you put into what you do every single day.
Gracias a ustedes, gracias a CLATA, gracias a todo lo que están haciendo. I mean, you're right. There's, yes, about the fatigue, but there's, right now, I don't even want to talk on the phone. I want to see people's faces. Whenever
Abrazarlos, apretarlos.
Me too. No, I don't feel fatigue at all. Fortunately, I feel like I'm doing a lot. I'm doing a lot, and it makes me good in terms of what we're doing to the community, to the theater arts, and to myself too, because it's a way to keep being alive too.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for this kind of conversation. It's very, very clarifying. David, I like very much what you were doing and what I hear from you. To all of you are being very, very clarifying. Yes, enlightening. Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody. I love to see you all. I'll be calling you.
I love it.
Stay safe, stay hopeful, and stay sane.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Take care.
Thank you. Take care, everybody. Great to see you.
Bye-bye, David. Bye-bye.